As I was telling you, first of all, greet you all very, very heartily in the name of the Lord. As I was beginning to tell you, I want to introduce you to a new Christian counseling. You might think, what is this? Now, I would call this as Christian meta counseling. In the normal fashion, we understand a lot of things about eagerly come and join this meeting to know more about Christian counseling. Today's topic is Jesus as a counselor. My observation in all the dealings that Jesus had with people, he was counseling, but he did. He did counsel. He did is the way we should be doing. He has set specific examples for us. How is this Christian counseling reaching out beyond the border, beyond what we understand counseling? Let me give one verse. 5:16, it says, "Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works which is in heaven." Let your light so shine. I would like to, in Christian counseling, so shine before men that they may see what you do in his name. Did it. At the end of that chapter, that's Matthew 5, it exhorts us, be perfect as my heavenly Father. It would sound an impossible thing to be perfect as is perfect. He would have told us that if it were an impossibility. But he and let your light so shine in that perfection which you may be into your counseling. And now beyond the theoretical understanding of what I am trying to say, let's go to a couple of examples from Matthew chapter, I think it's 8, verse 2. After the Sermon on the Mountain, and he's coming down, and a lot of people were milling around him. In the people, such crowd were there. And as he was coming down, of all the people, a leper who is not allowed to come to the main road where he comes right in the midst of the crowd and cries out, "Son of David, if you will." There's a profound lesson in that incident. As Jesus, oh my goodness, what is this? Jesus reaches out, touches the person, touches the leper. See, the response of Jesus is he reaches out and touches him. Unheard of things. This is impossible. My camera is not. So when he comes down and touches him, and then he says, "I am willing." The twist in the counseling process. Normally, it would have been his son. No. But he goes to the leper and touches him. Done in those days, even today probably, he goes down and healing. That's the counseling example that Jesus has set out for. Ordinary concept of counseling. It's far beyond counseling. To go down and touch this leper. Yeah, that's better lighting. Yeah, so he is setting as exemplary concept of Christian counseling. Now he is asking us, in this incident, he is asking us, in the pain of that person, with the pain of that person, do you your own pain? The leper is certainly suffering. You don't have to become a leper to understand that. Are you there? Are you there with this person in suffering? And what is your response? Example. He's reaching out and touching a leper. In the pain of the person. Let me give you I'm way back in the 1970s. I was working as a missionary teacher, a Christian secondary school, Alliance secondary school run by Australian missionaries. Citizens and some from New Zealand and a couple of people from Canada. There's a big missionary community there from Western countries. And I was one Indian person teaching in that, and the first week itself when I joined that, Pastor Theodore asked me to teach Bible teaching, Bible lessons. I didn't know this and that. I was a brand new Christian. But the issue is that there were a British couple whose name I don't want to say, but let's say suddenly one day, Mr. K passed away in a massive cardiac arrest. So none of these mortuaries. On day, the funeral was done. He passed away the night before, and then the next day he was interned. And I came, and they were there, and they were singing. And you know, these Australian cowboys, the way they had huge sound, and they were nice people. They are very nice people, but the way they talk is very loud and things. And a way of saying, I came today. Instead of saying I came today, they would say I came today. So say, anyway, that day after a lot of singing and hollering around, Mrs. K got tired. Would you leave me alone? You may all go and leave me alone. And slowly they all went away. I was also in the same compound in my car, and I came down and I got into my car. That I didn't want to go. I stayed in my car. The next morning, by about 5:30 or something, I started my count, and I looked up and I saw Mrs. K looking down from between a parted curtain. Ah, Alex, something like that, she said. And that incident was forgotten. And at a half, their contract came to an end, and Mrs. K was going back to UK. And there was a big meeting to facilitate them. And all that happened. And in her reply, Mrs. K said, I'm sorry that night when I asked you all to leave and leave me alone, and you all went away, and I'm sorry I offended you. But that, you know, Alex driving out of our driveway, and I opened my curtain and I saw him driving out. And I said, oh, Alex, that did mean something to me then and even today. It did mean something to me that Alex stayed on there for me through that night. Expect something I didn't want to do. Probably I sat in the car and dozed off. But next morning she saw me. That was the thing. Lesson for me in that was, I was there in her pain, waiting on. And that meant something to her. Then, and on the day she was saying farewell, even now, I feel. So I caught on that word, presence. with the suffering and the pain of the person who is in suffering. You see, about it, your presence in the pain of the person who is in suffering. Jesus was present for the leper in his pain. So what I was talking is, as a counselor, are you present in the pain of the person in suffering? And the message I got then and now is, are you present? Your present counts. Your presence counts. Jesus was present for the leper in his pain. And the leper experienced the presence of Jesus, the glorious reflection of his presence, or the glorious presence of Jesus. And the man was healed in a moment. This is something which should set us thinking. How does our presence with the person in pain come? Are we deeply present for the person in pain? Now, my own presence as a person doesn't really matter. But what matters is the feeblest of reflection of his glory. Jesus sheds his love into me, and somehow, somewhere, there is a reflection of his love in the counselor. That presence, that feeble reflection of the awesome presence of Christ become discernible to the person in suffering. You are not doing anything, you are there. But his love makes some miracles within you. And you become available for the person in suffering, and your presence, your reflection of his great glory does something. When I say something, it's something miraculous. But it's all his reflection. It may be a very feeble reflection of his presence. We are not great reflectors of his glory, but somehow, somewhere, somehow, we do reflect his love. Say, for example, in John chapter 11, verse 1, Jesus was walking through a road. And one fellow, the Bible says he was short in stature, and therefore he ran ahead and hid himself among the foliage of the sycamore tree. But you see, the sycamore tree has got horizontal branches. If a sycamore tree is by the side of a road, the branch would reach beyond the road. And Mr. Zacchaeus ran up, climbed the sycamore tree, and went into the end of the branch, and then he was hiding there and praying, probably, oh, nobody would notice me. Not because he was short of stature, but because If he appeared in the crowd among the ordinary people, he was a terrible extortioner and tax collector. They would spit on him. That was the custom in those days. Tax collectors were spat on. Zacchaeus was afraid of that rejection. So he runs ahead and then hides among the foliage on the other side of the road, so that nobody would notice. Jesus passes by. You just imagine that scene. He is passing under the branch of the sycamore tree, and Mr. Zacchaeus is on the other end, is hiding there. Approaches the tree, the sycamore tree, and then he looks up. Nobody has seen Zacchaeus, but he looks up. He doesn't say it. And I suppose he just beckons Zacchaeus. Hey, come down. Tonight I'm coming for dinner at your place. Zacchaeus, tonight I'm going to be your guest. Look at the transformation that is brought to it. Of being spat upon by the people. And Jesus doesn't tell him to do anything at all. But he climbs down because he was in front of Jesus. Nobody spat. And right in the midst of the huge crowd, Jesus gives him instant acceptability. Zacchaeus, come, I'm coming to your place. Look at the acceptance Mr. Zacchaeus, the tax collector, got right in the midst of all those people. And Jesus didn't ask him to do anything at all. But Zacchaeus comes down and says, Lord, if I have defrauded anybody, I will give double. If I have stolen anything from anyone, I will give 4 times more. Like the sheep thief. Sheep thieves, if he is caught stealing a sheep, he has to give 4 times the price. That was the custom in those days. And Zacchaeus says, I will make up 4 times all that I have extracted from these people. Jesus didn't say anything. He didn't say, give this much or give that much or nothing. He only said, I am coming to your place. What was the magic? His presence made the difference. Jesus and his presence there, right in the midst of all these people, his presence made a difference to Zacchaeus. He didn't counsel him. He didn't tell him anything. No instructions, nothing. Just his presence. So this is what I am trying to bring out in this new approach to counseling, which I would like to call as meta-counseling, beyond counseling. Christian meta-counseling. I have sent this idea to a few people, secular people, and they don't seem to digest the idea. They really say that you are on a wrong footing and you assume that everybody should be Christian and everybody should be like Christ and this and that. And very scathing criticism of my approach. So I want all of you to give me your feedback on this. My telephone number, I will tell you now, 944-766-5024. 9 4 7 6 5 0 2 4. That's my number. Now, please let me know what you think about this. Will the non-Christians be able to accept this idea? Will we be able to project this idea to non-believing people? Christians might accept that. Non-believers, it will be very difficult for them to accept it. But all the same, the whole thing is in a theistic context. Christ as the healer, and counsel as he counseled. And there is also another incident in John 8. You see, he was talking to people, and then some scribes and Pharisees brought a woman who was caught in adultery, and they put her right in front of him, and they asked him, Moses tells us that if a person is caught in adultery, she must be stoned to death. Now, what do you say? That's the Mosaic teaching. But they wanted to trap him. Jesus was apparently not giving any attention to these scribes. He knows them as pretenders and all that, whatever they are. So he just sits there, and he was scribbling something on the soil there. Then he looks up at the scribes and the Pharisees. All right, those among you who have not sinned, let him cast the first stone. Those among you who have not sinned, let him cast the first stone. Starting with the elderly and young and by one. Obviously indicating that everybody had some history or the other. Or the person with the first stone must have been someone the night before. But he was willing to throw the stone at her. Jesus saw through the hypocrisy of these scribes. In our churches, such holy, I don't know, let me not use any epithets in such holy people. Right now, amidst us, in our churches, we can see these Pharisees. Let the one who has not sinned throw the first stone. Everybody left. And finally, Jesus and the woman were left alone. And then maybe after a couple of minutes, Jesus asked her, hey, what happened, daughter? What happened? None of these people condemned you? Then she said, Lord, no one condemned me. And Jesus says, neither do I condemn you. Neither do I condemn you. Go. Don't get into trouble. Go. No more sinful life. Go. no condemnation for a woman who was, by Mosaic law, ready to be stoned to death. He didn't condemn that woman. He tells her, neither do I condemn you. No. No problem. Do we have that light in us? Not to condemn. You see, even as we were talking now, we were talking about the Pharisees in our own church, and we were being critical of the Pharisees. Given a chance, we would throw stones at them. But not Jesus. His presence there, his presence right in the midst of the multitude of accusers, caused a miraculous change. He said, I mean, those of you who have not sinned, start throwing stones. And everybody left. What was the miracle there? There was healing of this adulterous woman, and she took a back turn from her way of life and never returned to that type of life. And we know Mary Magdalene. And what sort of holiness visited her. Now, that type of holiness, his presence made the difference to that multitude of the Mosaic followers and to this great sinner. That's Jesus. That was the sort of counseling he taught us. Go beyond the boundaries of ordinary concept of counseling and as Mary was telling us, as forgiving. He had not even cross-questioned her. Hey, why did you do all these things? Nothing. That's Jesus. So in our counseling, there is no room for condemning anyone. There is only acceptance. Even the adulterous woman, she is acceptable. The taxpayer, the extortioner, was acceptable. You know, when you see a person like that across you in counseling, what does it bring forth? That awful presence, Jesus' presence, right there, made all the difference. Now, in counseling, in Christian counseling, my request, my prayer, my exhortation is be that presence. Is it possible? It's not an accusing question. It's just an open-ended question. Is it possible? I'm just in the line as Mary was talking to you, forgiveness. But the forgiveness of Christ so that's what I'm trying to introduce into Christian counseling, beyond the normal concept of counseling. Christian counseling. Is it possible for us to be a reflection, a humble presence? In all these three incidents that we narrated, the factor that changed the situation was the presence of Jesus Christ before the person in suffering. I'm not saying that it is possible for us easily, but is it not possible? To reflect His glory, His awesome, glorious presence, the feeblest of reflection of His presence. Will it be impossible for a Christian counselor to be that? Jesus says in Mathew 7:31, if you continue in my word, you are truly mine. If you continue in my word, you are truly mine. If you're mine, I will be in you. John 14, John 15 says much more explicitly, I will abide in you. If you abide in me, you are a branch in me and I will abide in you, and you in me and I in you. What does that mean? He in me, He in each one of you. Is it a small thing? And He says, apart from me, don't try to do anything. You can do nothing. Apart from me, you can do nothing. So Jesus is extending His invitation to us to be in Him, abide in Him, that we may do as He did. And so Jesus is offering His presence within us. Grace counseling goes much beyond that. It says, then I am not there at all. I'm crucified with Christ. I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. That was a Pauline experience, but translated, it means that you no longer exist. Your old carnal self is crucified, and you live in Him. That's the truth. If that is so, can't we be His presence in a situation that calls for it? In counseling, in the type of counseling, in Christian counseling that we do, we are called upon to be healers. We are not technicians. I recently wrote an article for, just yesterday only, I wrote an article for family it comes from Vellore Julia Chandrasekhar publishes it. I think, yes, Family Foundation, this book. I wrote an article for that yesterday because they said on page 16 of that magazine, it says, being a caregiver of the elderly at home. So Beulah is inviting articles on caregiving for the elderly at home. When I saw this, it came as a hit. On the 20th of 2022, after 63 years and 6 months, I lost her. And she got 3 chemo treatment, but then the oncologist said she can take no more chemo. Her body with other comorbid conditions like diabetes and asthma and things like that. And so the oncologist said she can't take any more chemo. And she told me, Dr. Alex, if you want, that was a clear message. I didn't know what to do. My daughter and son-in-law were with me when the oncologist said this, and so they decided to take her to their hospital in a place called Kankulam, and they have a hospital. And we got her discharged from the big hospital and took her to the small hospital and admitted her in the ICU there. Because it was our own hospital, we had the freedom to go in and come out as we wanted. And there was no restrictions of the big hospital, and so we could go and be with her. I was there, my daughter, my son-in-law, my son, my daughter-in-law, 2 of my grandchildren. There were about 6 of us together, giving her round-the-clock attention. And I probably would have got something like 4 or 5 hours a day. During the 24 hours, something like 4 or 5 hours. And in the last MRI, the disease has spread all over her bones. The vertebrae and the ribs and the skull and main limbs and everywhere. It was lesions and so painful. And although she was asthmatic, she had to take some pain-killing tranquilizers and things like that. I don't know what all they gave, but most of the time she was in a haze, not comprehending her pain and not recognizing what was going around. And in that state of total unawareness, we were with her. And sitting with her, I would pray the 23rd Psalm continuously. There is a therapeutic effect in that Psalm. You would notice that. Everything in that Psalm is given. He makes me lie down. He leads me beside the quiet waters and guides me in the paths of righteousness for his own name's sake. I don't have to worry about anything because he guides me in paths of righteousness for his own name's sake. And then like that, and finally he says that you anoint my head with oil and my cup runneth over. It's not easy to pray that. When your wife on the bed dying, how can you pray? My cup runneth over. And I prayed that time and time and again. And when I was with her, I would rub her backside, and wherever it was paining her, I didn't know where it was because all the bones were affected. Everywhere there were lesions. So I would touch her here and there, and then try to offer a gentle touch here and there. At one time, she looked with a glazy, uncomprehending look at me. I don't know whether she was comprehending anything, she was recognizing anything, recognizing me or the environment, I don't know. But I was saying Psalm 23 and rubbing her back. And right in the midst of that semi-consciousness or lack of consciousness or whatever it is, with her right arm, she gave a gentle squeeze on my right arm, telling me, I understand. I did nothing. I was just pressing there, reciting to the third psalm. And she pressed my arm gently, telling me, I know you are there. That's what I'm talking about. Are we there? In the pain of the person who has no idea of the pain and no idea when the end is coming, not comprehending, not understanding, not all the time in every moment in need of attention. And sometimes that hazy moment, she pressed my right arm, telling me, I know you are there. That's what I'm talking about. Are we there? With the pain, maybe near death, may not be near death, whatever. But are we there in the pain of the person? That's what Jesus did with the leper. Just unheard of. Before 1930, there were no antibiotics. A leper patient, the fingers and the extremities would just worn off, causing a stink wherever this leper went. And that's why they were not allowed in the main streets. And Jesus goes to him and touches him. Can you imagine that? Can we do that? In the 21st century, 2023, would you dare to touch a leper? Right now, these days, there is no leprosy with multiple drug therapies. There is hardly any leprosy anywhere. But I've seen leper patients. There is a place called Puthankurish here in Kerala. They had a leprosy hospital, and in that hospital, the patients took care of each other. And when it comes to a time when they know that there is no more hope for this person, they will take him to a side room and leave that person there in that side room to die. Even themselves, they will not really care for that person. He's left there to die. I had been to that leprosy hospital and I had been to his room. His name was Michael. Michael lying, dying. It was impossible to get into that room. It was so stinking. I'm talking about 1986, 87, like that. And I went. And I knew his name was Michael. And I just called Mike. Then he looked and tried to smile. I don't know whether he was smiling or, but he tried to look at me. And I asked him, Mike, how come? There is nobody with you? And then haltingly, he told me his story. I sat by on a stool near his bed, and he told me his story. He detected signs of leprosy some 20, 25 years back. And his people drove him out of their home. He was from Telangana. So he wandered around in railway stations and different railway stations. And finally, when the disease got so bad, he came to this place, what's the place? And so there he came. And for some days, he was given multiple drug therapy, Dapsone and some other, I forget the name of the medicine. He responded a little while, but the sickness was so advanced, there's nothing the antibiotics could do. So he was left in the side room to die. And he told me when he was sort of cured in this place, he went back to his home, hoping that they would receive him. But his own sons drove him out. And he ended up back in this hospital. And there he was, dying. I don't know what my visit with Mike did to him, but after a few days I heard he passed away. I don't know whether somebody else sat with him like that, but he gave his whole life story. The first driving out of him from his home, and then after a little bit here in this Puthankurish, he went back, practically healed, and then his own sons drove him out, and the disease got bad. They came to the Puthankurish and they were very generous. They received him. But then the disease was much higher. And so he was lying there dying. impossible grace at times to be present of the people. Your presence counts. Your technical expertise and your scientific answers do not answer. They are not. Sophie is dying. There's a lot of technological stuff. There is transaction analysis. There is new neuro-linguistic programming and person-to-person counseling. All sorts of things are there in Christian counseling. But ask yourself, whatever. I don't want to be critical of whatever you have learned. But there is a pointed question there. In the pain of this person, he didn't with my dying wife. He didn't ask me because he knew I was there. Well, he would pointedly ask you, are you there? Are you there in the suffering of this person? With this volume, it may be hardly audible, but in your heart you would feel that question. You would ask his son, daughter, are you there? Are you there? So, Ghazala, I didn't see you. For some reason or the other, Ghazala and Paul, Selvaraj, Anila, and Mary Philip, Leja Abraham, Rajesh, Elizabeth, Sonia, I am asking you a pointed question. Can you be there? Not with your profuse knowledge. You would have a lot of knowledge on Christian counsel and on secular counsel. But all that the Lord is asking you is, are you there? In the pain of this person? Meta-counseling, it's simply, the word meaning is beyond counseling. Meta-counseling means beyond even Christian counseling. The counseling Christ Jesus gave us always beyond the ordinary understanding of counsel. What he did to that prostitute, that's beyond our realm of counseling. So, meta counseling, I took the word Harris, he started meta-psychiatry. Meta-psychiatry is beyond psychiatry. Incidentally, I don't know right now, I was suffering also from multiple pain in my neck and in the lumbar vertebrae. So my who happened to be a friend of mine, he gave me and one is gabapentin and then tramadol. Once I take that medication, when I is going, whether I'm going to right or left, I have no comprehension of things are happening around me. The pain was probably gone, but I was a complete wreck. So in situations like this, Thomas Cora talks about meta beyond medication. So that is the line I was trying to follow, meta counseling. Of counseling. You see, there are all sorts of different schools of counseling. Maybe different types of counseling that is available. And so it's not easy to define it, but the understanding I have the ordinary concepts of counseling and help the person and be there in the pain of the people in suffering.